Hello, Jim. Hello, welcome
Hi,
back. So we're
how are
talking
you?
about, yeah, hello. So we're talking about AI today, okay? What a small topic to touch, okay? What a very simple subject to
Yeah,
cover in time we have, right?
yeah.
So let's take a little bit of structured approach here.
Okay.
Otherwise, we will be in the sea of knowledge and wisdom, okay? How about we start with what are your views on 2020, on the trends we will uncover, okay, and trends that are already there but will continue to flourish in front of us, okay? This is your opening segment here, Jim. Take it away.
Okay, well, yeah, as you know, everybody's bombarding you with AI and from scary stories that DARPA is going to send some mosquito in your house and spy on you and send a weapon if you don't align properly with DARPA's politics, to, hey, this stuff is really usable. It helps people, it helps businesses. It helps business in particularly automation initially. And then eventually customer service. And we're going to see that in 2020, we're going to see that being upped. So the companies that have focused on some AI projects are saying, how can we help the automation effort? And they've been very successful at that. I have 5 documented case studies on my Forbes blogs. I tried to echo them in my own blog so we can spread the knowledge of what AI is doing. And eventually I'll have to say what AI isn't doing, because there's a lot of creepy stories out there. There's a lot of fear mongering, which I view as positioning by the vendors because they haven't figured it out yet. So let's stall people. And you can't stall business people. Business keeps marching on, and it better automate, and it better deal with people better. And that includes customers and employees. And we're seeing a shift in 2020 for those companies that invested in automation, AI and automation. They're going to double down that bet. I'm seeing that already. And the next thing they're thinking about is how can we get my employees and my customers a better service? We have NLP, we have digital assistants, we have all those things that are trying to help, and we're seeing the start of that. So there's a huge shift in AI just for experimentation to AI for results. And it's not just the accountants' results. I love accountants. I was one at one time, but that's not the only thing. We have to help people as well. So I think we're going to see that shift in 2020. I looked at, AI trends because I have an AI background. I hate to admit that I've been around this long, but back in the 80s, I did a lot of Lisp hacking and worked on a number of AI projects. And that was, that particular phase ended up being an AI winter because it was just too complicated. And I think we're going to avoid an AI winter here. There have been 2 of them so far. We're trying to avoid that third one. And I think business is taking a real pragmatic approach to avoid that AI winter because people are having success as they experiment with AI, particularly when it comes to linking it with data. So I looked at a lot of trends and I picked 10 that appealed to me that I thought were things, people could build on. And I've seen case studies in most of these areas, one way or another. So these are my top 10. I think if you talk to somebody else, there might be more. I saw somebody document the top 100 on Forbes. I'm going like, focus like that's way too many in what they're doing.
Yeah, we can drill down, right? And under each will be more. That's absolutely Russian doll kind of conversation we'll be having. But for the sake of sanity of our listeners and viewers, all right. So let's kind of see where we are because we've heard about data. Okay, for how many years now? I mean, it's been I remember 7 years. It was all about data, right? From all the way analytical abilities, from pattern recognition to now machine learning, AI. right? Data from existing sources, from new sources, okay? So can you please touch on how this will be a little bit the same and a little bit different in 2020? Because we're talking about what, new data and old data, legacy data.
Yeah.
How will this all converge? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the projects are data driven, the initial ones, because that's what machine learning uses. Machine learning is involved with a lot of the newer projects. And so data has some of the same old problems, and it has some new problems. Well, let's talk about the old problems. You know, data needs to be cleaned up, it needs to be perfected, it needs to be accessible, and it needs to be linked. So in the old days, you know, data was very focused and unlinked. So the idea of linking things together from a concept perspective just was not thought of back then, but the data was dirty. So today, data still is dirty, but now there's more of it and it's linked differently and it's faster. So data is not only big data, it's fast data and it's dark data. So that's data that hasn't been looked at. And so there's a lot of you know, issues around getting the dirty data fixed, and that will continue. As people discover, how do I make my machine learning and my AI more significant, the data will get cleaned up. But there's another thing, is that as we move beyond machine learning and we getting into decisioning, you're going to see that AI is going to point to new data sources. I worked on a project for an insurance company where we were doing an underwriter workbench. And part of underwriting was, and part of what we were trying to do, because it was a company that believed technology could leverage things so that they could push the cost model down, like all insurance companies want to do. And they wanted to push some complex decisions from doctors down to frontline underwriters, you know, lower level junior underwriters. And because they did that, they found out that they needed more data. The doctors had a lot in their mind and they knew where to go. And so as we did decision prototypes in, you know, an older version of AI, which was a list-based approach, we found out that we needed to get more data. So not only is data dirty, there's going to be more dirty data, and it's going to be coming at you faster than you can deal with. And so organizations that just accumulate data, dirty or clean, and hope that AI is going to sort it out for you, I think that's kind of the wrong attitude. You need to start with what things are important and go after them. So I also worked on another one for a large credit card company, and they wanted to make sure that they could figure out if the transactions that were coming in were, you know, legitimate or not. You know, is somebody using somebody's card for a taxi cab in Japan when they happen to be in New York City right now? Those kinds of things. And so as they move into decisioning, there'll be more data that's necessary. And so going out and getting more data is part of this AI game, as well as cleaning it up. And the speed that it's going to come at you is much different. We're going to have to sense patterns and respond quickly. And so the data question isn't as simple as cleaning up what we have. It's acquiring what we need based on kind of a goal-driven or decision-driven perspective.
Beautiful. And what I think I understood from your blog post, right? So you are stepping into full life cycling of what? Sensing, data mining, iterations, improvements that each organization has to embrace, right? The concept is not new. It's not, no. Right? No. But talk to me, please, about where AI in this iteration cycle, because for some organizations, taking AI project on is a big investment, and you think this is like kind of standalone big project or shiny initiative I'm going to run in my organization here. So where is this iterative kind of day-to-day approach, which of course drives quality of, you know, people and time investment and frankly technology innovation there. So how does it all work together?
Well, you know, the standard cycle is, you know, observe, orient, decide, and act. That's the OODA cycle.
Been around for a little while. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the OODA cycle, as I see it, is it's more, here's what's happening, let's find the patterns, let's make a decision and take an action. Well, and that's good, and you iterate.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if you just follow the data instead of saying, look, these are the goals we have, these are the decisions we have to make, and do it from a end game business outcome or organizational outcome perspective, it's better. So just doing that iterative cycle to do the iterative cycle to learn and get better, well, that's good, but ideally it's driven by decisions and goals. And AI will eventually handle some of that on its own. So it could be unsupervised. And because it could be unsupervised, we're going to see the notion of guardrails or constraints enter into this. So as something's going through a cycle, the AI bots or agents, whatever you want to call them, I think the industry has decided bots rather than agents. As they go through the cycle, there's certain boundaries you can't cross. There's certain things that need to be expressed to management saying, hey, look, we didn't think about this scenario. I have to make a decision, get back to me. Hopefully, if you put in constraints and guidelines that make sense, you won't have to wait for that human intervention. So this cycle is going to move faster. It's going to become more goal-oriented instead of flow-oriented or iterative feedback cycle-oriented. All those things are still there, but it's the perspective of, you know, is it input, process, take action, loop back through, or is it, here's what we want for outcomes, let's look at that cycle and see how we can get closer to those outcomes. And I think that's the way forward, the goal-driven approach.
Beautiful. And where sense and understand in this kind of equation? Okay, so how do you think this will be inheriting what we had in 2019, right? And what's new on that horizon in 2020?
Well, the sense and respond part is I'm looking for signals and events that are interesting or I know ahead of time are a threat or an opportunity. And it's going to move to compound events and signals to look for patterns. And so as we include AI, we're going to get more patterns and less events. So it'll be smart enough to know what the patterns are. And of course, some algorithms can do this, but AI does it better. And so the notion of sense and respond and looking inside my normal set of contexts is going to become more pattern centric. The other thing that's going to happen is it's going to go outside of the normal context to say what's happening in nearby neighborhoods, what's happening in this world, and do they meet? So for instance, there's the medical world and there's the underwriting world in the example that I used. And you know, we could sense events and patterns in the medical world, we could sense events and patterns in the work and the policies that were coming in, but we had to converge those two worlds together. So now there were new contexts as well. So the sense and respond will do a much better job within the context you normally operate. And it'll also include contexts that you haven't thought of. And this gets into that idea of asking for more data again, backdooring it.
An interesting point, you know, Nikhil, question I have, you know, how automation will play on both sides, because you mentioned underwriting world, right? Full of knowledge, okay, the critical data points, right? And you use, let's say, doctor or expert world, right? So where is automation plus AI in both scenarios?
Well, in the underwriting world, the automation is around making the decision faster and augmenting the people to make sure that that's happening. In the medical side, it's more about how can I go outside and learn from knowledge. So I want to check what other doctors are looking at. I want to look at what the legal implications of medical decisions are. It's a little bit more knowledge heavy rather than data heavy. But AI is really good at converging worlds and taking a look at what they do. And so algorithms are good at that too, but AI adds some extra sauce in that it can ask for extra data. People aren't talking about this, but AI can go through logic forward and backwards. So it can say step A, step B, step C. It can also say, here's my outcome. What steps should I take? And what new data do I need? And so if you take the underwriting world, it's more that first scenario. If you take the medical world, it's more the second scenario.
And so far, I've seen in my career, a very conservative approach when it comes to knowledge. What is it? Automation or any technology intervention, okay, with knowledge, because people studied long and hard, okay, to acquire all this knowledge and to work alongside the experts, okay, and it's one of the most conservative ways still to pass on the knowledge, okay? So how do you see this evolving? Because I know in insurance company, in banking, right, and medicine specifically, right, people don't look for bringing more technology, I'm ready to pass on everything I've learned. Where do you see this changing?
Yeah, okay, there's two issues. There's the people side of it, which is very complex, and then there's the technology side of it. The last time we had to deal with knowledge management, we utterly failed as an industry, technology-wise, because we tried to stuff knowledge into a structured database. And in order to stick it in a structured database, we had to have a knowledge guru who decided, here's the taxonomy. This is real knowledge. I understand what real knowledge is. You don't. You tell me. And so you got this central control of knowledge, which really stinks, frankly. And now we have, graph databases, ontologies. We can make connections. We can look at the connections later and say, is there a pattern to it? So now the guru is looking for the pattern to say, hey, this is kind of cool. You need to look at this, take advantage of it. So the technology is faster. The data structures are better. We're even including image. We're even including video in that. And so technology-wise, it's gotten a lot better, just like AI got a lot better when it broke things into little categories like machine language and deep learning and decisioning. So we're going to see that that's better and people are going to try it. Now, how do you get the people to try it after it failed? Because it did fail.
Yeah.
Just like AI kind of failed, it didn't really. I mean, we still see the Japanese use it in manufacturing very, very effectively from the second generation. So they didn't have as cold of an AI winter as we did in the Western society. And consequently, you've got to convince people to try it again. Now, they believe that they want to be king or queen of the hill and be in charge of the knowledge. I mean, I get that.
Very human, by the way, right? Controlling and, right, being in charge, right? Empowered by what you already acquired. So, yeah.
Right. So people are going to have to take a step of faith. But you have to understand that people watch other people. I mean, that's what we're really good at. I mean, if you've ever gone shopping, what do? People watch. When you go to a restaurant, what do? You people watch. So you get there's always those people who like to experiment and try things, and they're willing to take a risk. And those are the risk takers. It's about 15% of your people. you let them work with the knowledge, and everybody will watch and say, well, what happened here? Did they get burnt like I thought they were going to, or not? And what you'll find is they'll be the leaders and they'll be successful. It'll go on to the fast followers, and then eventually it'll go to the followers. And then there's this last category called never gonna. And they're never gonna get ahead either. So, so as people watch and change, and in fact, I'm making a prediction in here that people will have bot buddies.
Yep.
And these bot buddies will go beyond the typical Alexa, find me this and order me this on Amazon. It's going to be much more complicated than that. They're going to insert knowledge. In fact, my vision for my wife is that I have a bot buddy in my ear in social settings so I say the right thing. So that's her vision. And actually, I'd go along with that because I manage to stick my foot in my mouth all the time in social situations, and I'll get the friendly elbow.
Yeah. And through iterative approach, I guess, Jim, right? We also learn, right, with the help of our bot buddies, right, and with the help with our buddies next to us, right? So
exactly. And by the way, the underwriters were the ones that said that these little helpers that helped them make decisions while they were underwriting became somewhat friendly. So even though they were
trustworthy, right? So after some small successes, I envision, right? You would
and they're feeling, hey, look, I'm making these big decisions that doctors do.
Right.
So I feel better.
Yeah. Doctors without diplomas, right?
People will have bot buddies. In fact, I just saw an advertisement for a bank that had a credit card where they gave a name to it. I think it was Elijah or Elisa or whatever. I can't remember what the name was. It was somewhat of a male name, and it was going to advise them when they thought there was some funny business going on in their credit card. So, I think the idea of that being friendly instead of getting an email after the fact saying somebody might be messing with your account, which, I just had happen to me on Amazon over the weekend. So they're in the process of helping me fix that. But I wish I would have had a bot buddy saying, hey, look, we're sensing some activity. And I saw some in my emails where people were trying to break my security code, which one of them eventually did, which means this guy's got to come up with a better security system and better passwords. So I thought I had
a good action to take, Jim, right? This is exactly what we're talking about, right? After getting all the signs from the data we're using, right? Then if you don't take action, it's all
and the bot buddy will be looking out for you.
Right. Do you think bot buddies, though, I'm glad you brought it up, do you think it's kind of easier entry point to kind of bigger initiatives? Because it
goes from an NLP help me order things to a, hey, you need knowledge, I've got it, I'm going to give it to you, and hopefully that endears you to the bot in some way. Now, some people have a problem with, I like talking to people, I don't like talking to tech. And there's always going to be that. But I think we're going to see the emergence of the bot buddy coming out.
Right. And this will lead, in terms of enterprise kind of experience, right? Bot buddies or bot projects, right? They will lead to some of the RPA maybe, some of the task automation path, and from that, like bigger transformative initiative, at least that's what I'm saying.
As RPA gets smarter, that will happen in the automation, but it should happen also for the customer. Today, I get these silly chat bots. If I happen to be pining for the new C8 Corvette, which, I'm kind of a gearhead. Every time I kind of look at information about the C8 Corvette, I get, a chat bot wanting to sell me up. Hey, you want to talk? No, I don't want to talk. I'm doing research. So that, to me, that's a bot bother instead of bot buddy. So I think the notion of, bots knowing more about you and your role as an employee knowing more about you and your role as a customer, as a consumer, is going to make that happen. But there's some key pieces that are missing. The idea of a digital profile and a digital identity that's secure is not something that we're, as an industry, we're doing a good job on yet.
Sure. I mean, that's, all the power in 2020, right? Because what I love about technical world, okay, technology and business coming together in, hey, just next version of acquired knowledge, next version of, right, technology helping us. So
yeah, and let me give you another example of a bot buddy. There was this one company that set up a translation buddy that would automatically translate what you, and most people had to basically take something, find a translator, pay them, and have the translation done, and it took forever. So now they have these bot buddies that, using NLP, can tell what language being spoken and give them a 90% translation that they can then hand over to, maybe a specialist translator. So that becomes a bot buddy, particularly if you're in a consulting business. You're translating all the time, particularly if you're over in Europe. And so the notion of a bot buddy, and by the way, some of the people said, this bot is a buddy of mine because it gets the translation, done fast, done well, and I don't have to worry about it.
That's not true, though. That's not true. I'm familiar with those scenarios. And basically, this is amazing what can be done at relatively very low price point now. Because I used to be in marketing where translations would take weeks, if not months, when you sent it to a vendor, and it's all the development cycle they basically in this kind of project. I know that. So absolutely, where technology took us now, it's amazing, okay, for any kind of businesses, small, medium, large, absolutely. Point is, when you completely rely on those automated bots, of course, with AI in it, right, you still want a human. In some cases, would it be 10%, 20%? You do
it's supervised, but not as much.
Yeah, absolutely. So did it make a difference? Absolutely. Okay, can it be all automated and not even looked at? Of course not. So again, if we're moving on, right, in 2020, the better versions, cleaner kind of, right, those that make more sense. But progress is already tremendous. I mean, I'm a big fan, absolutely. Yep. So we talked about interesting point here, right, data and iteration and bots. How about, okay, that's kind of near and dear to my heart, okay, because I saw you pointing out to AI being in everything. In 2020, right, you see kind of this trend growing, not slowing. And again, from my experiences, we were talking about AI in processes and business processes. That was 4 or 5 years ago, okay, when we realized in IBM that, hey, right, we better help straight through processing with some of the AI capabilities, right? That was a big talk. I'm sure it's great talk now, right? Many vendors going down that lane. So I'm familiar with process. I know huge, of course, segment AI in security and all kind of monitoring and action taking. So can you please talk about what do you mean by AI in everything?
Well, whether you know it or not, AI is going to be in the platforms that you're using. So slowly, some of the vendors are replacing the parts of fragile logic that requires humans to change to include AI. So even in, real, simple scenarios, like let's say scanning forms for an insurance company, the fact that AI will be in the scanning and detecting whether more information needs to be needed to complete the application, for instance. So if it's a loan application, an insurance application, a claim application, even in little things like that, machine learning and AI is being embedded, and you don't even know it's happening. We're also seeing that happening in bidding processes where AI is giving advice. We're seeing AI involved. So let's take the idea of a trader's workbench. And I'm a big workbench fan after working on an underwriter workbench for an insurance company. So let's say you're working for a Wall Street firm and you have a trader workbench. Well, the trader workbench used to give you different kinds of things, more based on algorithms. Now they're going to give you some AI. So for instance, there are certain things that you can do legally and can't do when you trade. So a bot will be giving you advice as to whether this trade has some issues. Also, there's portfolio goals. So if you're trading on behalf of another company or a group of clients, what are their goals? Is it risk aversion? Those kinds of things. So there'll be a risk bot that will be there. There'll be a trading bot that'll help with automation. So the idea of AI all over the place being seeded in is almost like what happened with algorithms. Algorithms and rules got seeded everywhere. We're seeing AI getting seeded everywhere. It's making platforms smarter. As digital business platforms emerge, we're going to see more and more AI in it. I mean, if you take a look, even let's look at it at a complete tech-weenie perspective, and that's cloud platforms. All the cloud platforms are getting smarter. They're baking in AI. Google's got it, Microsoft's got it, IBM's got it. It's all for different reasons, but not only is it in the platform, they'll make it available so you can put it in some of your logic. So the notion of AI sneaking in everywhere and you're not even aware of it is already happening.
What I found interesting, right, when you bring it up as a trend, okay, that's kind of a new thought for me. So you're talking about AI being in Industry 4.0, supply chain and value chains. What resonated with me here, okay, is really AI is gonna start building new products for us. This is human task. It's creativity, right, that we so pride ourselves on. All right, where is this in the entire, product ideation, right, development and supply chain? How do you think this will change? Mm-hmm.
Well, now we get into the blurring lines between AI and algorithms. So for instance, you're going to see AI used in Industry 4.0 at the edge, so it can sense what devices are doing. So if there is a product that's being produced, it can be watched across the supply and value chain. That's the initial. Will it come up with ideas for the new products? Potentially after watching how customers customize. Yes, that could really, in fact, happen. But also then you got to start pulling in different kinds of algorithms that help. And that's the notion of things like simulating and actually creating a 3D graphic and saying, here's a suggestion for a better way to do this, or here's a new kind of product we've sensed based on customizations, because all product lines have to be customized, particularly when you get into large scale situations. So for instance, in the chip manufacturing area, each chip has a different kind of set of rules based on who the customer is and what board it's going to be on, or what edge device it's going to be in. So this notion of watching for customization is going to happen. But algorithms are used to do some of the simulation as well. So we'll have drawing algorithms, we'll have manipulating algorithms. So the partnership between AI and algorithms is going to get strong, particularly in this area. So the one example that I hope I never have to deal with, but a lot of people have to have their teeth replaced as they get older. So the whole supply chain is controlled from the time that the picture is taken to the time the fake teeth are implanted, whether it's a denture or an implant. That whole thing is just managed by technology. And in some cases, they've got it down so you actually go, it gets taken care of in less than 24 hours. a lot of them are putting in temporaries, but the notion of being able to handle it end to end. Now, there's still pain with the customer. Anytime you're drilling and hacking away on somebody's jaw, it's going to hurt, but they're getting healed faster and they're getting to the end game they want faster. So the notion of, will AI and algorithms help in ideation? Yes, by watching. Yes, as we start getting into right-brained activity. So I wrote a blog post on left brain versus right brain. And, you know, left brain is that logical side. And the right brain is the creative side. As we get into more right-brained activities, and we're going to see that emerge, start to hear about how AI is suggesting how to do something different. So it'll probably be more microscopic. So let's take, since I'm a gearhead, I like to use car examples. You know, one of the issues when Corvette went from a front engine to a mid-engine, overheating was an issue. So, you know, they probably got suggestions from algorithms and AI and how to do proper venting. So that didn't happen. And in fact, their first version does not have the things that generate heat. The things that generate heat in cars are things like turbochargers and superchargers and things that affect, you know, the heating thing. But, you know, I'm sure right now, as GM is trying to do, make their C8s faster and have faster versions, it's suggesting ways of, you know, dispelling heat, because heat is the enemy of performance cars. So sorry about that.
No, very relatable. No. Example dear to your heart. You know, one of the example I saw that touched my imagination is, hey, AI completing Mozart Requiem. How about that? Okay, and I took it from the TV series I watched lately. Okay, this is the whole issue so nicely presented with some humor. Okay, because of course musicians and everyone who know and loves Mozart would be very appalled to that. I mean, right? At the same time, it's so interesting how creative minds right now just projecting on these future scenarios, okay, that we would think unthinkable, okay, who would complete Mozart Requiem, who died writing it, okay? But to me, it's an absolutely kind of a good example of continuing what human did, however brilliant and of course, what is it, just genius he was, okay? Yeah. But said that, AI, of course, will learn from us, okay? It will learn bunch of Mozart patterns, okay? Even know him better than anyone would possibly do, right? At the same time, continuation of the same, or that kind of interesting, to me, it's kind of an experiment, okay? Would our ear accept what the machine created for us, okay? And there will be tons of critics and tons of course, snobs who would say this is nothing, right? At the same time, we agree here, you know, this is the future. This is the future. So hopefully we're not going to be hearing what AI music presented to us as the only one that's left on this earth. Hopefully not. Same with, okay, novels, same with, you name it, dishes, okay, you name it, cars, right? But there's huge potential. I mean, I'm not going to be genius, you know, pointing to that. So again, the music world is amazing, you know, the area of application, right? And I'm sure there are bots that already doing a lot of technical work for musicians. I mean, I'm not a musician, I'm amateur, I'm just a fan, right? But I'm sure they're like some kind of techno loops, right? Where AI can be, right, can be helpful, and probably already is, okay?
Well, yeah, if you take GarageBand, you can create different kinds of organ kinds of music, and they have
any of us, right? And we feel, woohoo, I can be musicians, okay?
Yeah,
no,
yeah. So
not yet, right?
So in fact, it can even go into the history. So one of the famous organs was a Hammond B3 organ that had a spinning speaker. So through algorithms, they can actually emulate that B3 organ with the Doppler effect that occurs as the sound goes around in circles. So in one of the songs that I'm writing, I use that particular effect using GarageBand. So yeah, that in fact happens, and it's a collaboration. So same thing with some of my art. As you well know, I do fractal art. And
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of the computer suggests, here's an interesting math pattern that creates a nice piece of art. Could you use this? Well, what I'll do is I'll take and I'll alter it, and we're working together to create it. And
Yeah.
some of my fractals have made it to the Louvre, they've made it to Times Square, they've made it to Miami Scope, and that's a collaboration between me and in this case, an algorithm, not AI.
Jim, we will link, okay? We will link your portfolio works, okay, in this post so people will get to know, because, yeah, I'm familiar, but I have to brush on the latest work that you do. And hey, it talks a lot about who you are, right? And your left brain, rather. Okay, but at the same time, it's enormously kind of convergence of what human abilities are, right? Being what in logical work with algorithm and technology that you work, right? At the same time, expressing yourself in and hey, as technology progresses, right, you will be reporting more and more what you can do, right, with those bots, and yeah, little help from our automated friend here. Right?
Yep.
No, that's very interesting. That's a cool example. Yep. So let's move on into, okay, back to technology with super smart machines and infrastructure platforms, okay? Because I do want to talk about a little bit here. And I know digital business platform is something that we will step in some of the future conversations, I hope, okay? But here we are talking about AI, right? Where do you think, where this term for someone who just new to the world, okay, to the not newborn, but to the technology kind of right domain, how we do orient them better in a way that digital business platform where AI takes part in it, okay, and how do you see if anything to pinpoint as a teaser, okay, for future, deep talks.
Yeah, so the digital business platform combines work management, combines thinking, combines data and linkage to data, combines the physical world and business logic, brings it together in a platform. So some digital business platforms are more about the infrastructure, they're more about the data access. Some are more about work management and people collaboration. Others are about the business logic and the transactions. Others are about the physical world and sensing the physical world. All of them need AI and algorithms as a partner, frankly, to make them smarter. So you'll see the emergence of digital business platforms in the cloud arena. Amazon's got it, Google's got it, Microsoft's got it, IBM's got it. They're all trying to differentiate their technical platforms, technical business platforms with smarts. So there's, a real concrete example. They're advertising it even. When they start including some of the graph chips, you'll start seeing, more control of things like, I'm sure you've seen these drone shows. And we've seen that some of the hardware-based digital business platforms are using AI in controlling those drone shows. So obviously it can control also robotics, and it can also control production, production creation and product lines and assembly lines. And so you're going to see different specialty platforms, and that's on the physical side. Now there's also that on the business side, and that's managing the logic and the transactions, and AI can help and assist employees as they do that. Same thing with work management. Does it know when somebody is missing, and can it do, workload balancing based on the resources that are available, or put the work in the lap of the right person at that particular point in time? Or can it suggest the next best person and a bot buddy? And so the notion of work management is crucial. And then there's the idea of decisioning and analytics and AI. AI and analytics work very well together. The problem is we're steeped in analytics, looking at the data, and that's okay. we need to start looking at the goals and how do we get there using the right analytics and the right inferencing, getting into the decisioning end of AI. So we're going to see AI creep into business transactions, work management, creep into production lines, creep into data management, creep into decision management. AI will be everywhere in these platforms. These platforms will differentiate themselves. So a real technical example that's very real is IBM is pushing its security intelligence use their cloud platform. They think they do it better. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what the advertisement says. And I know they're using AI.
Okay. So help me understand, ridiculous question I have for you, okay? I somehow, when you talk about digital business platform, I start to think about the full stack of enterprise software, okay? Mm-hmm. Tell me if it's different or my thinking is not exactly up to date yet. So to me, every company, every enterprise, right? They have to handle their product development side of it, right? Technology for that. There is finance, there is packages, there is legacy applications for bill payment, order management, supply chain, every human resources, any kind of, right? Customer, of course, customer facing UIs and business processes. I mean, the whole stack, what we used to think, right, of business applications, okay, and backend, of course, the databases, you name it, okay. So digital business platform, that is it the top layer on all this, or how do you go from, right, each system, and every possible capability enterprise would need?
Yeah, well, there's different ways of doing this. One is to take that viewpoint that it's the enterprise backbone or the enterprise nervous system. Mm-hmm. That's a legitimate digital business platform. But there are other digital business platforms that are just as legitimate, where somebody might say, well, instead of following a vendor, we have an architecture, mm-hmm. and we need to plug something in here. So there's digital business platforms that are specialty platforms. So for instance, a data science platform, right, which is offered by a number of different companies. TIBCO's one, Google's another, informatics is another, information builders is another. They have these data science platforms. What they are is mini digital business platforms that really solve a specific problem. And in the architecture of a company, it fits into an overall architectural digital business platform they're building. So they might start with this and then integrate it with their work management. They may pick, a BPM vendor, a dynamic BPM vendor, like a Pegasystems, like an IBM even. And they may say, that's a digital business platform for management work. They may pick a collaboration suite. And the collaboration suite is around managing work between humans to make sure things get done. That's very goal-driven. It could also be a business function, like an accounting capability, like SAP. They have, in essence, a digital business platform. Salesforce has a digital business platform, and they're interested in the transactions around sales management. SAP's, it's around either accounting or legal or some particular industry like oil and gas or manufacturing. Those are legitimate digital business platforms. And then there are ones that are around managing the production line itself that are digital business platforms around IoT. So for instance, you'll see a combination of business and IoT in field management. So the idea of having infrastructure like in oil fields, like in telecom, and managing all the people. And it's a digital business platform that takes a little bit of each, a little bit of business function, a little bit of IoT, a little bit of work management, a little bit of analytics, and combines it together in a specialty digital business platform. But is there one digital business platform that'll run a whole company? I don't think so. I think it's going to be multiple. and the thing is to get those guys to work well with each other. They tend to want to control the customer. So the idea of getting them to cooperate with other digital business platforms will be a challenge. But I think the bigs are getting it. They understand.
And those who are, I'm glad you brought this up, because those who are successful in integrating, okay, because it still will be, what is it, the blanket made of many different pieces, okay? We cannot expect, right, any single company running on one vendor or even on one, I would say, school of thoughts, okay? There will be, yes, enterprise architects will be out of jobs, right, if that would be so easy. But point is, I'm glad that you bring it up, that it's going to be still very interesting and what is it, fast moving space, right? Where each company has the right to decide, right? Which way they would move forward. So Jim, this is tremendous. Okay. We touched on so many areas. Okay. We're going to expand absolutely in upcoming talks on many of those. So your net, your kind of takeaway, okay, summing up AI in 2020, take it away.
Well, the net is more automation help, because the accountants want that. It's a year we don't know whether it's going to be a boom or a bust year. And so we have to lean on automation to make sure we're ready for any scenario. So AI will continue in automation. Is RPA the gateway drug for AI? It could be. In our RPA talk coming up, we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we're going to see an emphasis on including AI in the customer experience and the employee experience. Some companies believe that the best customer experience is by having the best possible employees that are equipped properly. And, there's some truth to that. Others believe that it really is the customer experience. It's the whole journey and nothing but the journey. And the journey that your company is involved with is not the whole customer journey. A customer journey starts from a customer having an idea to them getting what they want, and your company might be just in the middle of it, or your organization. So both of those things will be improved by AI. So an example of employees, can you imagine if that you're fixing a physical device and you have a camera watching you actually on your helmet looking at what you're fixing, and it's suggesting to look at a video from an expert who's fixed that before. So, there's AI suggesting what you should look at in terms of video, and get some real online training when you're in the middle of fixing it. Or what if this part isn't available? What do you do? So that is in fact going to happen to increase employee experience. So it's not just automation, it's the employee experience, and it's the customer experience. You're going to see digital assistants. And right now, companies are saying, okay, we're going to offload work on customers. So we're going to make them our entry. Yep. Well, you're going to see less and less of that, and more of not just cross-selling and upselling and an assistant trying to cross-sell you and upsell you, to actually trying to help you. Let's say you're ordering a car. Here are some configurations of that kind of car that other people have been satisfied with. That doesn't happen now. You got to configure it yourself and figure out where the best price is. Wouldn't you like to know what other people have done? And like, there I go to cars again. I'm sorry. It's either cars or sports.
Yeah. I understand that. So being configured future models.
Yeah, and it's other product configuration.
Yeah, I know what it is. It's fun, but at the same time, you're right. I'm doing all the work. So I can use some help, yes, from technology.
Yeah, the accountants are happy that you're doing all the busy work for the company.
Exactly. I was in restaurants when you're cooking your own food, okay? So next thing you know, I'm going to be bringing materials to make my own clothes, and that will be, I'll be paying somebody to give me this opportunity. So absolutely. So we can use help. We can use better ways to work together with companies we're buying our services and products from. So Jim, this is fantastic. Okay, I think we covered a lot today. Okay, there will be more coming. So I will be asking to our listeners and our viewers to subscribe, and I will be linking your blogs because you have the whole library of invaluable information there. So we will help our readers, listeners, and viewers, okay, to acquire more if they want to go along. So Jim, thank you so much. I think it's been great today. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.